This is Michael with Rock Legends Photographers, and I'm here with Midge Ure at the world-famous Plaza Live in Orlando, Florida. Midge, thanks for taking the time with us.
It's a pleasure.
Midge, just a little bit of history. You played with Thin Lizzy prior to Ultravox?
I had joined Ultravox. I was in the studio putting the finishing touches to the first Visage album. And through working on that album, I ended up joining Ultravox, who had just returned from an American tour, a broken band, dropped by the label, but what a great band to join. So I had just joined Ultravox when I was asked to come out to America for the first time ever, and tour with Thin Lizzy. So I was a kind of hired gun, really, rather than than a potential.
Did you play with Gary Moore, or was
I
he?
replaced Gary Moore.
Okay.
That's scary stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so how long have you been a professional musician?
Oh, I stopped doing anything other than this when I was 18, and I'm now 64, and I can't do the math. That's quite a long time.
That would be 46 years.
I see, I can't even say that. My lips won't let me say that amount of years.
There you go. So, in all the time you've been a professional musician, I'm sure you've toured all over the world many times. What is your favorite venue to play in, and why?
It was always, I'm from Scotland, as you can tell from my very mild accent. And the Glasgow Apollo was a notorious venue. And one of the highest stages you've ever seen. But I saw everyone play the Glasgow Apollo, everyone from the Osmonds to Led Zeppelin. You know, my management owned it at the time, so I used to sneak in and see all the bands. And when I went back with Ultravox and we played Hammersmith at the Glasgow Apollo, it was just electric. I mean, it was like the prodigal son coming home, and that was just outstanding. Nothing can top that. Really.
That place holds what, a couple 100,000?
No. This was it was the largest cinema in Europe at one point, so it held about 4,000 people. But that was just, I mean, to play your hometown in the gig that you saw everybody play, to go back there, it was a kind of, it was a mark of having made it.
Very cool. Living or dead, if you could jam with one person, who would that be?
I never worked with John Lennon. I worked with all three of the other Beatles. I performed with George and Paul and Ringo at the Prince's Trust concerts in the UK. But I never ever see of all the people who should have been at Live Aid, John Lennon should have been there. Mm-hmm. So that would have been great. I think he might have been quite a spiky character, and if you rubbed him up the wrong way, you might have known all about it. But I would have tried hard not to rub him up the wrong way, you know.
So you're saying he had no filters?
I think he probably didn't have any filter. I think his filter was probably very snide remarks, so they were not masked very well. But from what I've heard, you know, I worked with George Martin on the Quartet album with Ultravox, and he told me some stories. So I'd imagine John was a bit of a handful.
I bet he was. Okay, kind of a related question, living or dead. A singer shows up at your door, knocks on the door and says, Midge, I'm going to sing one song just for you.
Right.
Who is the singer? What is the song?
It kind of almost happened. I was a huge Small Faces and Humble Pie fan, so a huge fan of Stevie Marriott. And just before he died, I was on a plane flying out to Los Angeles to make the Breathe album, and Steve saw me. I was at the front of the plane, and as he walked past, he went up the back, and he came up to me halfway through the flight and chatted away, and he said, come back, come back, come back. So I went back to where he was sitting, and he proceeded to sing Frankie Miller songs at me at the top of his voice. I think he'd had a few drinks, while people were watching the film. And there was the film, you know, when they used to have the television in the middle of the thing. So everyone was watching the television, and he's going, wah, yeah, wah, he's singing these, screaming these things out, and people are telling him to shut up, and they had no idea who they were talking to, you know. So it kind of almost happened, and that was him. He was on his way out to meet up with Frampton with a view to putting Humble Pie back together again, and it was on the flight home 3 weeks later that he died.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Well, you know, it was incredibly sad, but to have known to that level that you could actually sit there and have a chat, talk about music and stuff, to know a hero like that, that was great for me. It was wonderful.
That's wonderful. Young singer-songwriter comes to you and he says, Midge, I'm thinking about making a career out of music. What advice would you have for him?
Keep walking. It's a very different industry today. I wouldn't know how to advise anyone to start out in the industry, because the template, the route that you used to take back in the old days was difficult enough. But not only have they changed the route or the game plan or moved the goalposts, they've burned the goalposts down and, you know, thrown all the ashes away. I don't know how you do it anymore. But if you are determined to be in this industry, you write and you write and you write, and then when you're tired writing, you carry on writing, because that's the only way you're going to stand out. You have to develop your own voice, and I don't mean this voice. You have to develop your own style, something that makes you unique, so that if you ever have the opportunity to get played on the radio, if that's how you discover these days, that people will eventually recognise your particular style, because there are too many people following the same template, and it takes a little bit of uniqueness and a little bit of bravery sometimes just to stand out from the crowd, and it doesn't happen often enough these days.
I agree 100%. That's really good advice. Your entire music collection gets wiped out. You got nothing. What CD do you replace first?
Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. All-time favourite album. I learned so much as a spotty youth discovering that album. It took me to places that, you know, pre-video clips, you know, that put images in my head, which music does. And I learned so much about arrangement and passion and power and production from that album. You know, I was fortunate enough to have met David on a few occasions, and all of the Spiders. I worked with Mick Ronson.
I was going to ask if Mick was the guitar player on that, and I thought he was.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yes. It's a lesson in melody. Ronson was such a melodic player, very simplistic but incredibly melodic, just the right stuff. Whether he was playing guitar or piano, it didn't really matter. He added so much to the arrangements that he did. So yeah, that's the first thing I put back.
Yeah, Slaughter on 10th Avenue is one of my favorite albums.
Yeah, when he did his solo stuff, you know, when he did that instrumental track, Slaughter on 10th Avenue, was just fantastic.
Really good. Last question, and the hardest one. You've probably been interviewed throughout your career many, many times. What question would you like to answer that no one has ever asked you?
I'm not sure there is one, actually, because I've been around for such a long time, as you very beautifully pointed out. You know, I've been around quite a long time. Given the opportunity, would I have joined Thin Lizzy? And the answer's no. Not that I wouldn't have loved it. I had something that interested me far, far more. I had a band who had just been dropped by the record label, who hadn't, you know, a dollar between them, but we had ideas and we had electricity, and nothing could have pulled me away from that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us. We really, really enjoyed your show, and wish you the very best on the rest of your tour and the rest of your music career.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.